Last weekend was Super Bowl Sunday, and 127 million Americans watched it live. Before I get into this, I want to admit that I actually am a New England Patriots fan myself. I like sport as much as anyone watching this. But I'm also Irish, and I grew up around Gaelic games. Sports has always done something real for people. It builds community, it builds belonging and connection. It's important. The Gaelic games are community. It's run by volunteers. Players are not paid. Supporters are local. Every empire since Rome has understood that sports are community. Every power structure in history has understood that people need games. The NFL is not community. The NFL took that human need for community and industrialized it. It turned community into content, belonging into a product. And it sells that product for $260,000 a second. That's how much a single second of advertising costs on Super Bowl Sunday. A 30-second advertising slot costs $8 million, and NBC had sold out every single slot by September. Sponsorship revenues for the NFL this year hit $2.7 billion. The league's total revenue surpassed $30 billion in 2025. But the halftime performer, Bad Bunny, he didn't receive a dime. The NFL's position is that they don't pay performers. They don't pay any performers. They cover production and expenses. The artist gets exposure. Apple Music pays the NFL $50 million a year just for the halftime show naming rights. Since the beginning of that deal in 2022, Apple Music's streaming revenue has grown from $79 billion to $110 billion. Junius Juvenales was a Roman satirist writing around 100 CE. Juvenal is most famous for this phrase, "Give them bread and circuses and they will never revolt." But that is not the original text. This is what he actually wrote. They shed their sense of responsibility long ago when they lost their votes and their bribes. The mob that used to grant power, high office, the legions, everything, curtails its desires and reveals its anxiety for only two things, bread and circuses. Notice the order. First, the people lost their vote. Then they gave up oversight of the state. And then they were reduced to wishing for only bread and games. Juvenal was actually saying the opposite of what our popular modern reading of this is. He is writing in 100 CE, under the early Roman Empire. By this point, Rome no longer had a functioning republic. Real political power had already moved from the citizen body to the emperor and a small section of elites. Voting still existed in name, but it no longer decided anything meaningful. To put this into plain modern terms, long ago, from the moment we stopped selling our votes, the people poured away their cares. That order matters a lot. The crowd was not being bribed with circus and bread. The vote itself had already become worthless. There's nothing left to sell you. This was a historical reminder. In the Republic, citizens really did decide on things. But by the time Juvenal is writing, that power is gone. Now the people restrain themselves and anxiously desire only two things, circus and bread. This is a key turn. The loss of political power comes first, and then comes the shrinking of your desires. Juvenal is not describing rulers paying off an active demanding public with circus and bread. He is describing a public that has already been politically disarmed and only cares about circus and bread. The people of Rome were not bribed, they were broken by 60 years of civil war. Between 91 and 31 BCE, Rome mobilized soldiers at an astounding rate inside Italy. By the time Augustus seizes power, nobody alive remembers how the Republic worked. The Roman public traded their political rights for peace and survival, and Augustus built an altar to drive that home. Juvenal's contempt is aimed at the smallness of the public's desires, not some kind of trick by the emperor. February 8th, 2026, Bad Bunny walks onto the Super Bowl stage through a sugarcane field. It's the first predominantly Spanish halftime show in history. He names every country in the Americas. He spikes a football that says, "Together we are America." 127 million Americans watch, and for Latino viewers, this feels like representation at the highest levels. Within hours, Trump tweets, that it's the worst he's ever seen and he can't understand what Big Bunny is saying. While the delightful Kirsty Nome says that ICE agents will be all over the Super Bowl. And here is where the trap closes. Millions of people rally around Bad Bunny and the NFL. As conservative media attacks the show, the NFL is now feeling like the vehicle for progressive feeling. But the NFL is not your ally. It's a $2.7 billion sponsorship machine that did not pay the performer or a bunch of the low-level staff. Apple Music only paid $50 million for this halftime show to grow their share of the Latin audience. Trump's attack has you all defending a corporation. You are no longer questioning who profits from your sense of inclusion. Apple holds roughly 16% of the global streaming market, and Latin music is the fastest growing sector. Apple's vice president of marketing said about this show, "We are approaching it with the same care as we do for other products, employing an extensive array of marketing techniques akin to those used for the iPhone. This is a $50 million a year product launch disguised as a cultural event." The Trump attack does something specific. It made millions of people feel like the NFL had done something courageous. It transformed a corporate product launch into an act of resistance. People who might otherwise question why a $2.7 billion corporate sponsorship machine gets to define what Latino representation is. While exploiting Latinos, you're supposed to feel grateful that the machine gave Bad Bunny a stage. Hundreds of professional dancers at these halftime shows are also unpaid. Some paid dancers get access to green rooms, and then unpaid dancers are left to sit in stadium bleachers in the cold. This is a multi-billion-dollar production with a reputation for exploiting unpaid labour. The performer not getting paid is a symptom. The disease is the fact that this entire system is designed to exploit unpaid labour at the bottom and make sure you don't know about that. Also, the choice of having a Latin music star this year is not cultural alignment. The Recording Industry Association of America published a report in mid-2025. It showed that Latin music had generated over $500,000 in the first half of 2025 alone. That's a 6% increase on the previous year. The Latin music industry is growing at a rate of 6 times faster than the overall US music industry. Latin music is now accounting for nearly 10% of all US music revenue. The halftime show selection follows the money. The cultural significance is real, but that's not why this was decided. This decision was made in a boardroom by suits looking at growth charts. The same week that 127 million Americans watched Bad Bunny say, "Together we are America," ICE held 70,000 people in detention. The halftime show told Latino viewers that they belong, while ICE tells Latino families that they do not. The NFL operated as a tax-exempt non-profit from 1942 to 2015. In 2015, it chose to give up that non-profit status voluntarily, not because of public pressure, but because they wanted to stop disclosing how much their executives earn. Commissioner Roger Goodell had been paid $79 million over 2 years. The moment that became embarrassing, the NFL chose to move to a structure where they didn't have to disclose anymore. Now they disclose no financial information at all. A $23 billion industry has made itself invisible on purpose. You are supposed to watch this and believe if a powerful institution puts someone who looks like me on the biggest stage in the country, then I must feel included. But you're not included. You're being marketed to. What you got last Sunday was the feeling of inclusion. The feeling was real, but the inclusion was not. The people who run this system are not afraid of a public who uses their political energy to argue about whether Bad Bunny should have been allowed to sing in Spanish. If you're having that argument, this system is working.